Battlefield 2042. We've had a couple days now to digest the reveal trailer and all of the information that dropped alongside it. And in this video, we're going to discuss some extra details that I noticed in the snippets of the behind the scenes specialist gameplay that we were shown a few days ago, and additional moments in the reveal trailer which perhaps give away more than meets the eye. To give you some context, at the press pre-brief we were presented with about 20 seconds of gameplay for each of the 4 specialists that have been revealed so far. This was watermarked as pre-alpha gameplay and liable to change. It won't be released publicly, but I can tell you about some of the new features that I saw. So here we go then. When the player aimed down the sight of their gun, a compass appeared at the bottom of the screen. I've made a mock-up on BF4 of how it looked. This was only there when the player aimed and not all of the time. And this is a feature a lot of Battlefield fans have been asking for since the popularity of games like PUBG started to rise. I suppose the intention of this would be for a player to quickly communicate with their squad where enemies were, especially considering how big the new maps are. I'd love to see this as an option to have turned on all of the time though, if it remains in the final game. Generally speaking, enemy players appeared to be slightly darker than friendly players, so it could be that there's a filter of some kind designed to differentiate the teams. When aiming at enemy players and getting close to them, a red symbol designating what class of specialist they were and their in-game name appeared above their heads, along with the distance that you were away from them. The distance that this triggered at seemed to be about 10 to 20 meters to the target. In the gameplay, whenever you got close to an enemy and were aiming at them, you could see their health bar the same way it is in Battlefield 5. Just for reference too, the assault symbol was an up chevron with something in the middle, and the engineer symbol was a classic wrench. Friendly team players also had their distance to you and had a light blue dot above them, and squad members had green. There's been some questions about how the movement sensor trait for Casper functions. This is a unique perk that only Casper can get, and it allows them to detect nearby players who are running or sprinting behind them. In the gameplay clip for Casper, he's sat on top of a building and then he snipes an enemy down below with a bolt action rifle. He then turns around equipping a revolver and quickly shoots a player who is running up behind them. Now I noticed that at the bottom of the screen, right before the character turns around, you can see a red pulsing semicircle, indicating a player running towards them from behind. It was very similar to how High Alert works in Modern Warfare, but red instead of yellow. Also in the first part of the Casper clip, they were playing on the orbital map, that's the one with the rocket launch, and Casper equips a tablet and sends their drone gadget into the air and then begins to control it. Now I notice here that a storm had picked up on the level, and you can see the tornado in the distance. The whole vibe of the level had changed completely though. In the screenshot here and some of the video footage of Orbital from the reveal trailer, it looks quite bright, but in the gameplay snippet I saw, because of the tornado in the distance, the map was a lot darker. There were bits of debris flying around in the air, and all of the trees and bushes nearby were shaking and bowing in the wind. So it appears that weather effects changed the whole vibe of the level rather than just the area where the main event is. Also in this clip, I noticed a player at the bottom of the screen slide into cover. It looks like that's returning for BF 2042. Sliding has been a movement feature of Battlefield games since BF1, and it also featured in Battlefield 5. In the specialist clip with Maria Falk, a support character, we see her shoot her Surette pistol gadget to revive a downed teammate from cover. The gadget appeared to have 6 shots in total, with 6 in reserve, and that was physically shown on the back of the pistol's heads-up display, and it reduced to 5 once she'd fired a shot. So it looks like some guns and gadgets will have a real-time ammunition count on the gun itself as well as the in-game user interface. I also noticed on the same clip that puddles and wet areas on the ground appeared to have accurate reflections. It was a similar look to how this tank and soldier are reflected in the puddles here on the discarded map. So it could be possible that what we're seeing here are real-time reflections courtesy of ray tracing. Modern graphics cards and the new consoles, the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, are capable of this now, and BF5, which is a game from 2018, did feature real-time reflections on PC. So I wouldn't be surprised if Battlefield 2042 has it as an option as well. In regards to user interface changes, you still had your weapon and equipment in the bottom right, although it did come quite far into the center of the screen. And you know how in Battlefield 5 at the top of the screen in the middle you can see the flags and ticket count? Well, this has now been moved to above and below the minimap like this, and you can still see the outline of exactly where the capture points are on the minimap. When the player entered a capture zone, the only thing up there at the top of the screen was the name of the zone, for example C2, and a small bar showing how many friendly and enemy players were in that capture point. A lot of people have been asking questions about the plus system on the guns too, and we were shown this. As I mentioned in the previous video, it kind of looks like the system they have in Crysis, where you inspect your gun and then you get 4 different options for the gun. There are no animations for changing attachments either. You just click on what you want and it will instantly replace or remove what was on there before. So there's no like screwing off a suppressor animation, for example. It will just appear instantly on your gun when you press it in the plus menu. Now moving on to some really sneaky things in the reveal trailer. I'm not going to do a full breakdown of it because people have already done some great videos on that. I'd recommend Level Cap and Flakfire on YouTube if you haven't seen one yet. Instead, I went through frame by frame to find things that relate to gameplay and things that weren't really picked up on or talked about that much. So in the trailer, there's a very obvious distinction between what a specialist looks like and everyone else. The specialists tend to have this N symbol on them, which stands for no pat or non-patriated. They also have visible gadgets on them, such as the wingsuit or this weird thing. More on that in a second. And the specialists are who you play as in Battlefield 2042. So who are these generic looking soldiers then? Well, I would guess that these are the AI soldiers that were announced for the game. And they have some level of random customization, so they don't all look the same. The lighter looking soldiers are the US faction as seen here. They tend to have greeny yellow colours, and the darker ones are the Russian faction, and they tend to be black and white or grey. Outside of the 4 specialists announced so far, we do see a couple of new ones in the trailer. This guy here with the red patch, I'd hazard a guess that that's some kind of spawn beacon for your squad as a unique gadget that they've got on their back there. We've got this lady with a ponytail. We see her a couple of times in the trailer and in screenshots. It's difficult to see, but she is carrying some kind of device on her back that's probably her unique gadget. As to what it is though, it's difficult to tell. Your suggestions below in the comments please. And this dude here, Espinosa, we first see him taking a dog tag and he's featured with a classic black balaclava and mask and gas mask with a stripe. Later on in the trailer though, a completely different skin with a more modern looking fighter jet style mask, a white balaclava and a helmet. It's quite clear that there are different skins for each specialist to choose from. This guy here is Webster McKay. He has a grappling hook, and in the art shared with us here, he has a very different laid back look with the cap featuring the Canadian maple leaf. But in the trailer, wearing more equipment, much more tooled up, he's got a backpack on, a helmet, and the maple leaf is now on that central chest piece. And in some additional art that DICE shared with us with the 3 versions of the game that they offer, there are several different skins shown for specialists, guns and vehicles alike. There's even one for the Robo-Dog. So based on this, it's clear that there will be a lot of cosmetic customization in this game. A couple of gameplay movement mechanics were given away in the reveal trailer too. Here we can see a player proning on the ground in front of the ship, and they've also deployed a bipod on their machine gun, insinuating that both of those mechanics are back. As well as this, we see a player on the Manifesto map hoist themselves up onto a container to reach a higher area. Penguins, I don't know if you noticed them. If we don't see these in game, I'll be very upset. I felt like the smoke in the rocket launch scene was quite interesting too. If you remember last year at EA Play, DICE kind of showed something from this game for the first time ever, and all it was a bit of smoke dispersing on a box and a building being destroyed. But with what we know now about this being the latest Frostbite engine, it's got new tech in it, it's got a new physics system. These kind of effects could be in-game as volumetric smoke, and they may be affected by things like vehicles driving through them, wind, explosions, that kind of thing. Towards the end of the trailer, the tuk-tuk is seen speeding away from the tornado, and then it's pulled into it. But right at the bottom of the screen, just before it goes airborne, you see the front wheel break off. Now it could be that they've just done that for a cinematic effect. This is a cinematic trailer, but usually DICE are pretty good at making cinematic stuff relevant to their game and sneakily announcing things. So potentially this could mean that vehicles in Battlefield 2042 have different elements on them that can be disabled. For example, like shooting wheels off cars just because there's a front wheel missing. Maybe you could travel a bit further in it. Let's say you were in a Humvee or a Jeep, one of the front wheels gets shot off. You could still drive it, but it wouldn't be ideal. Again, just hypothetically, based on what happens there, maybe we'll see that in game. I thought this was quite funny too. When the tuk-tuk is in the air, the advertisement on the top says, "Why walk when you can fly?" And also the number on top is an Easter egg to previous Battlefield games. We've got 1942, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, and then 2042. And that's the order that those games were released as well. Although they do miss out some on the way, but it's pretty cool that they threw that in there. And that's about it really. If you want to see a decent breakdown of all of the guns that were featured in the trailer, there's a guy on Reddit called The Real Space Hosh who did an overview of that stuff, and I'll link that down in the description below if you want to check that out for yourself. With that said, that's all for today, folks. Thank you for watching. Not long now, just a couple days until we all get to see the gameplay trailer. That's being shown at the Xbox conference on Sunday, so I'll definitely be tuning in for that one. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. I also want to say a massive thank you to everyone that tuned into the first Battlefield 2042 video where I broke down all the gameplay and information about the game. The support on that has been absolutely incredible. We've managed to hit 2.2 million views on it, and it hit #2 trending worldwide on YouTube, which I'm simply blown away by, and I've never had a video do that before. Usually it just gets put on the trending for gaming, but this one actually made it to the real trending tab. Insane. I just wanted to say thank you for that. I'm off now. Subscribe for more. I'll see you next time.